Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gaming Mix podcast, your official podcast from analogstickgaming.com. I am Jordan, as always, if you don't know me, and to my left is the founder of Analog Stick Gaming, Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Doing not too bad. Pretty decent. Just woke up a little bit ago.
Good. I'm okay. I'm a little bit frustrated because if you're watching this episode, you might wonder why you've had two episodes in quick succession, and that's because YouTube has just let us down this week. I've tried to upload our previous episode like 4 times, and I keep getting error in processing, so you're probably only getting these episodes a few days apart, so I apologise for that, but our last episode was a pretty positive one. We were, you know, kind of responding to and talking about the Xbox Developer Direct event where we got some information on upcoming Xbox games. And then apparently this week, Microsoft decided to give some very bad news. um, so we'll talk about that as we get into the mix of things. We've also got a few things that we've been playing that we can talk about, but we also have a lot of things under embargo still, so we apologise for that. I know a few people have asked why we don't always talk about things we've been playing, and essentially that is the reason. As you know, if you follow the website, we both review games. I review games for another website, Outer Haven, as well, and so we're often under embargoes for things. And
Yeah,
we
I'm
can't
playing
talk about them.
3 games under embargo right now.
That's crazy. That
So,
is crazy. But yeah, there we go. So we'll talk about a bit about what we've been playing. We've both been playing very good games, but very different games, I think, for the ones that we can talk about. And for now, though, Jeff, I think we should get into the news. What do you say?
sure. Let me bring up my document here. All right. So, last week we talked about the fact that Piranha Bytes is possibly going to be closed through Embracer. They Embracer owns THQ Nordic, so it's by relation there. Um, but Chronobytes has confirmed rumors about a possible closure. This comes directly from their official Twitter, and it says, and I quote, "Yes, it's true. We Piranha Bytes are in a difficult situation. There is a lot of news about us circulating right now, and this is our answer. Don't write us off just yet. We do everything to continue creating worlds in which you can lose yourself. This is what our hearts have always been beating for. We are convinced that we will succeed. We are creative minds and there's no lack of ideas. We stick together no matter what. Now we are focusing on this goal with all of our strength and we'll do whatever it takes to find a partner for this project. As soon as there is any news, we will share it with you. Thank you very much for your continuous support." Um, yeah, that
Yeah, this
is
is.
it,
Mm,
it's good news, but it's also like we don't know exactly what's still going to happen because people could be like, "Hey, we're going to fight the good fight," and then the next day
yeah,
they
yeah.
can't.
It
But
it means they're
um,
trying to look for options, right? Essentially, that's what this
yeah,
statement means.
and it's basically just finding a partner because like they do get funding through the government as well too for making games as well. So there is a little bit of that cost kept up, and like there I don't necessarily know the budget of their games, but I'm probably guessing it's somewhere between 40 and 60 million
Yeah,
because
they're definitely on that
if
lower
CI
end
games can make
in
yeah,
terms of the
it,
scale of game that they make. You know.
yeah, because if you take a look at like the new Lords of Fallen, that had a budget of around 60 million, and the production value there was a bit higher, but they were also
Yes.
working
Yeah.
on Unreal Engine 5 and it's a newer game. I don't know what Chronobytes is working on right now. I'm assuming it's Elix 3. It was only ever known as Wiki 6. Um, but yeah, it's good to see them going because again, like they are one of my absolute favorite studios, despite them not having like a game that I would consider breathtaking
Yeah.
or anything like that.
And they're quite a long running studio as well, right? So
Yeah, they've been
it's
around for like 20, 30 years.
so we want studios like this to carry on and live on, and again, I've said it before. This is the kind of situation where I am really positive around acquisitions and that type of thing. And we heard recently, through kind of leaked documents and other things, that Bungie, for example, who are a much bigger company, them being acquired by Sony actually stopped them from going out of business. You know, it was that kind of situation. So I'm hoping
Yeah,
that,
they did have to let go people though because of that as well too. So
yeah,
again, it's the good with the bad, and like,
yeah,
it
of
happens.
course, and I just think it just proves these sort of situations, business situations, prove that nothing is completely good and nothing is completely bad. Every decision made, and we'll talk more about decisions in business later on, are never just because of one thing. There's a lot of butterfly effects in business that can make a huge difference. You know, we look at this, we've spoken about Embracer Group many, many times, right? But look at what happened there. Essentially, they lost one deal, which was a mega deal, and it's torn through their company like anything, really, hasn't it? So, you know, I'm hoping that Piranha Bytes can find a partner or find a situation that suits them, that allows them to carry on, whether that be some sort of publishing agreement, like where they just sign up almost as like a second party studio, so they don't sell to
Yeah.
anybody else, but they have a guaranteed income, whether it be that they are purchased by somebody, because
See, I would love Focus Entertainment or something like that,
yeah.
like one of those studios, or even the studio that puts out the Sherlock Holmes games.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it's like Bugbear Interactive still, or whoever the case is. Um, but I mean, like that kind of studio, I think would be perfect because it fits that kind of side of the world.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And also it fits that, that those kind of companies like a Focus, who are changing their name at some point soon, I believe.
Yeah, Pull Up Entertainment,
Yeah,
Focus Entertainment is great.
it
Like Pull
is.
Up,
Yeah, that's such a weird change, but a company like that make the right kind of scope of game as well, where they know
yeah,
what the scope of these games are, you know. So uh, I'm just hoping. I'm hoping for the best in this situation, and I'm glad that they're not just giving up and shutting doors, you know. So at least give it a go. Try and find some sort of situation that works. As you said,
yeah,
I think this is at least mildly positive news in the sense of it gives some element of hope. Um,
yeah.
Other than that, though, we've had some quite bad news recently in terms of layoffs and things. So where do you want to go next,
Yeah.
Jeff?
So I'm just gonna go down the list here just because I've got it kind of structured to kind of lead into each other. So another one of my absolute favorite developers is Rycon Games, and while they haven't had a release recently, they had the 2017 action game Ruiner, which was a 10
The first
on my
10.
side. Um, Ruiner is unbelievably good. Um, and Ruiner Studio Rycon Games has reportedly laid off around 80% of its staff. Um, I have no idea what this means for the studio. So this comes from, I believe, VGC. Rycon Games, the studio behind 2017's action game Ruiner, has reportedly laid off around 80% of its staff. According to sources speaking to Kotaku, layoffs have taken place at the independent studio, which is based in Poland. Kotaku sources say that around 4 of every 5 employees at Rycon has been laid off, making for a total of 60 to 70 people. The sources have also told the site that the layoffs are sudden and shocking. Rycon has been working on a sci-fi first-person shooter called Final Form, which was announced in 2021 as part of PlayOn's Prime Matter label. During its announcement in 2021, Prime Matter said Final Form expands beyond the edge of the known universe in a race against an unstoppable plague to protect the last celestial being, essence of life and creation. Oh, sounds like an unstoppable plague might be like Embracer, but I don't know what they're related to. However, while the trailer for the game remains on Rycon's own YouTube channel, the version on Prime Matter's YouTube channel has now been made private, and the status of the game is currently unknown. The layoffs at Raycon are the latest in a long list of job terminations across the video game industry. A list that significantly grew in 2023 and shows no sign of stopping in 2024. Um,
This is crazy.
yeah,
Like 80% of
it,
staff.
yeah, like I know that they were working on a VR shooter, and I don't know if that ended up actually coming out or if that converted into this. Um, but yeah, like it sucks because like again, like Ruiner for me was a perfect video game.
Wow.
There was not a flaw in that game. And the fact that some of those people that contributed to that are no longer with Rycon
Yeah.
sucks ass.
Yeah, it does. It really
Um,
does.
it's again like we talked about at the end of last year is that industry analysts have said that 2023 was going to be nothing compared to what we saw
Yeah.
to what we would see in 2024.
Mhm.
And we're already at like 60% of what was lost of who was
Which
like
is
let go in
crazy, right?
2020.
We're 1 month into this year, and
We're not
we've
even done
already.
January. We're not even done January. Like honestly, there could be like there's 3 to 4 days left in the month,
Yeah.
and we could still have another 1,200 or 1,300 people. Like we could hit all of
Yeah.
2023's layoffs by the end of the
Yeah.
month.
And I think, look, we can speculate about the reasons for it and all that kind of stuff. What I would say is that yes, okay, from the negative side of it, we can look at it and go, it's just companies being greedy and they have no real reason to lay off any of these people. I do
Yeah.
think that there's a there's a problem with capitalism that I won't get into here. But when we take a step back and we realize that this is how every single industry kind of functions, we just don't hear about it as much in other industries. I think what's really happened here was that there was a bit of a boom in the pandemic years for gaming. I think that a lot of companies overexpanded or overinvested into certain things, expecting the level of income to remain high or at least higher than it was pre-pandemic, and that hasn't really happened, right?
Yeah.
And
Um,
I think that's we're seeing the results of that now.
yeah. I'm gonna have to deep dive back into a couple news reports because I remember Jeff Grubb talking about this, and he was saying that a lot of companies basically had all this capital sitting around, and that it was smarter for them to spend it than holding on to it. And I can't remember the exact quote on it, um, because like I keep bringing that up when I'm talking to people about it, saying like these companies had this money and they had to spend it. Um,
So I saw we'll get on to Activision later on, I'm sure, but I saw a report recently that between 2021 and 2022, Activision as a company actually grew by nearly 5,000 staff in a year, and that's a lot, right? Like they went from I think they went from like 9,000 to 13,000 staff in a year.
yeah,
Um
it's insane.
and I think some of that is now resulting in what we have seen, which we'll talk about shortly. Um but it's happening everywhere, and I don't know what the answer is. Like I said, I absolutely understand people's frustration because I'm there with you. These companies don't actually need to get rid of these people, but when we take a step back and we sort of just realize that that's how business functions.
Oh, yeah, like let's dive into the Microsoft thing because we're already bordering on it right now. Um, sorry. So Microsoft lays off 1,900 staff following the acquisition of ABK. Um, So Microsoft will lay off 1,900 employees at Activision Blizzard and Xbox, the latest tech company to announce cuts so far in 2024. The layoffs represent about 8% cut of its video game staff of 22,000 workers and come months after Microsoft acquired Activision in a blockbuster deal.
Yeah.
The $69 billion transaction in October represented one of the largest tech deals in history as Microsoft took over the studios behind best-selling games like Call of Duty, Diablo, Overwatch, and World of Warcraft for its Xbox console. The plans cut are part of a larger execution plan that would reduce areas of overlap. Microsoft Gaming CEO Phil Spencer wrote in an internal memo, which was quoted in multiple news reports. We are grateful for all of the creativity, speaks Phil Spencer, passion, and dedication they have brought to our games, our players, and our colleagues. Spencer is quoted as saying in the memo, "We will provide our full support to those who are impacted during this transition." So, going into the Activision deal, if you were not expecting redundancies to be let go, I don't know if you were paying attention
Yeah. Yeah.
because this was bound to happen. Now, I was not expecting 1,900 people.
So I do wanna just take a step back for a second.
Yeah.
Not all of these redundancies are from Activision Blizzard. Some of them are from pre-existing studios that Xbox and Microsoft already owned. Okay, the majority are from ABK. That's our understanding. And I did see, I think it was either Steven Totillo or Jason Schreier said that reports are suggesting that Toys for Bob and Sledgehammer Games both lost somewhere between 30 and 40% of their staff in these cuts. What I would say is that I've also heard that many of these cuts are actually from customer service and PR and those kind of things. And what you have to remember about those sorts of jobs is Microsoft already have people who can do those things. And Activision
Yeah.
Blizzard King, when they were their own company, they needed those divisions. They needed them
Yeah,
because they're
because
functioning by
like
themselves.
Microsoft bought a publisher.
Yeah,
So there's a lot like office jobs essentially. Like it's not like they bought a developer. And I think it was
yeah.
the guy behind NoClip,
Danny
Danny
O'Dwyer.
Danny O'Dwyer was saying it's like, yeah, like you have to understand, it's like they bought a publisher.
Yeah.
So like they're like you don't
And
need
also,
like the
and
same jobs essentially.
yeah, and also the other part of that is it's different to the Bethesda deal, where one of the things we heard about the Bethesda deal was that they guaranteed all of the publishing arm jobs for so long. They guaranteed all of the non-developer jobs for a certain period of time. With ABK, they didn't do that. They didn't guarantee that these people would keep their jobs. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that we do have to look at, like I said just now, ABK grew by 5,000 jobs in between 2021 and 2022. That is not sustainable now that the industry is back to normal
Especially
levels.
when you put all of them on Call of Duty.
So
You know, like
I look, I hate people losing their jobs, especially when it's a company that's just become the most valuable company in the world, and there's no reason for these people to actually lose their jobs. Okay, I understand that perspective of it. However, as a business and as someone, if I was running the business, you are not going to duplicate jobs. If you have
yeah.
people that can already do the same job, they don't
Yeah, if you have
need
a
to be there.
global esports team in Activision and one in Microsoft, you don't need two global esports teams.
Yeah,
So you do have to let one go, and you will weigh in, okay, who's the more experienced
yeah.
ones, but also who's the one that is ingrained the most.
What I will say, there's a couple of things about these cuts that really did surprise me. One is that these cuts came along with a game cancellation. I don't know if you saw that, Jeff, but
The Blizzard survival game.
Blizzard's survival
Yeah, they're
game
working on that for 6 years.
got cancelled, and apparently that whole team got cut. So that's interesting. Um, Mike Ybarra has obviously now left Blizzard. He was leading Blizzard. He previously worked for Xbox. It was
Yeah.
expected, I think, that he was going to stay for quite a long time. Um, and I use the word left lightly because there is some speculation that he was potentially pushed out because his previous comments suggested that he actually wanted to stay there for a long time, and then all of a sudden, at the same time as these cuts happen, he leaves. It's a bit strange. Um, so there is some speculation that he's potentially been pushed out, but
Well, I
who?
do have um his comment that he made on Twitter here. It was him leaving. And that is I want to thank everyone who is impacted today for their meaningful contributions to their teams, to Blizzard, and to players' lives. It's an incredibly hard day, and my energy and support will be focused on those amazing individuals impacted. There is no way to. This is in no way a reflection on your amazing work. If there's anything that I can help with, connections, recommendations, etc., please DM me. To the Blizzard community, I also want to let you know that today is my last day at Blizzard. Leading Blizzard through an incredible time and being part of the team, shaping it for the future ahead was an absolute honor. Having already spent 20 plus years at Microsoft and with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard behind us, it's time for me to once again become Blizzard's biggest fan from the outside. To the incredible teams at Blizzard, thank you. Words can't express how I feel about all of you. You are amazing. Continue to do some incredible things and always keep Blizzard blue and the player at the forefront of every decision. To all those impacted today, I am always available to you and understand how challenging today's news is. My heart is with each of you. So yeah, like he's been kind of a big force for
Yeah,
Blizzard.
yeah, and he's helped kind of gain a lot of their reputation back, right? Not to say that Blizzard ever fell off a cliff or anything, but they went through a period of time where they lost a bit of their fan reputation, and they weren't really delivering what their audience wanted, I don't think. And then since he's been in charge there, most things have been significantly better, and they've made some really good moves. Um, yeah, this is a sad one, and like I said, it's sad that all of these people have lost their jobs. But I do think
Mhm.
there's an element of business reality here. Florian Mueller, who is the kind of acquisitions lawyer that kept everybody up to date on the trial and things like that, said that he made the comment on Twitter of like, when you acquire a company that's that big, there's no way that you don't cut jobs because it doesn't make sense to not cut jobs. Like, no
Yeah.
matter how big of a company you are, it doesn't make sense. And yes, that sucks, but it is the business reality. Like, I don't think any of us would have made a different decision with all the facts and knowledge behind us. I don't think we would. So I'm not defending this decision. I'm just saying that there is another side to it, and one thing that has frustrated me, however, is that some people think these cuts are only happening because of the acquisition, and I don't think that's the reality either. I think it's very likely, maybe not as many jobs, but I think it's very likely that cuts would have happened at ABK whether they were acquired or not. Because when you
Mhm.
grow by 5,000 jobs in a 1 year period, and then your industry starts making less money again, what are you going to do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people complaining. They're like, "Oh, Microsoft let off 1,900 jobs, but they had no problem giving Bobby Kotick his $350 million when he left." I'm like, they were legally supposed to do that. Like, you don't see Phil Spencer going, "Guys, we really got to give Bobby Kotick his $350 million
Yeah.
dollars." Like,
And
no, they
also,
legally had to.
the other part of it is, let's be real here. If they had agreed to a situation where they were protecting all of these jobs for so long, they would have stuck to that as well. Because, if a company legally has to do something, they're going to do it. I do understand concerns um, over certain things because Microsoft have a history of using contractors, and we know that caused issues for Halo Infinite's development and things like that. So I understand some of the concerns, but I think right now we have to just be human beings and realize that lots of people have just lost their jobs, and that does suck. But it isn't any one person like that is at fault, and it isn't even any one company that's at fault. Realistically, it's just the system of the world, and unfortunately, there's nothing we can really do about that. I don't think. Have we got any other news, Jeff?
Yeah, I added some more just because we're kind of like bleeding through this. So Microsoft has shuttered its physical games manufacturing. So Microsoft has also shut down departments dedicated to bringing Xbox games to physical retail, which if you've seen the digital-only Xbox console leaks, well, you can get an idea of where Microsoft is going here, according to Windows Central editor Jez Corden's sources. Note, reducing retail teams doesn't confirm Microsoft is quitting physical retail for Xbox games, as they can outsource, which might be consolidating here, he added. Legal documents leaked in September potentially lay bare key elements of Microsoft's gaming strategy for years to come, including plans to launch an adorably all-digital Xbox Series X console, codenamed Brooklyn. While its plans may have changed according to the documents, the console was targeting a November 2024 launch and a $499 USD price point. There are certain AAA games with an 80% digital shares on Xbox these days, so it's not too surprising, Daniel Ahmed, director of research and insights at Nico Partners, said in response to Corden's claims, indicative of how next gen will be for sure, the analyst added.
Mm-hmm.
While most AAA games currently receive dual physical and digital releases, some are only available to download. High-profile examples include last October's Alan Wake 2 and Xbox's upcoming Hellblade 2, which will be released in May, both of which are digital-only releases. Last June, Circana, formerly NPD analyst Max Piscatella,
Piscatella, yeah.
said players should expect digital-only releases for consoles to become commonplace over the next few years. Digital-only AAA releases are here, he wrote. Over the next 2 years, this trend will accelerate, and by 2028 or so, I think it'll be the norm for both Xbox and PlayStation releases. Nintendo likely won't move as fast, but then again, it's Nintendo and they're always full of surprises. The one thing that I am going to stress following this news
Go on.
is being a digital only platform has not hurt Steam.
No, no. I agree, and I want to say a few things here as well, so I apologize if I go on a bit of a rant. But
Do it.
but this has been coming for years. This has been reality for years on PC, as Jeff just mentioned. Outside of PC, Xbox specifically has the majority of sales in digital. And that's true of every platform. Every platform is around 80% digital now.
And game share through digital games.
Yeah.
Like I got two Xboxes here for like my roommate and me, two TVs, and we
Yeah.
can game share. And
Yeah.
like we can play the exact same
And
games off
and
one
and
copy.
don't get me wrong. I understand people's love of physical media. I do
Yeah.
get it. I absolutely get it, but I also think that part of this pushback against digital is just because as human beings we don't like change, and we think that all change is bad and all change is negative, and I don't think that's true. I actually think that there are a lot of advantages to digital, even for game preservation, which people seem to think there isn't. I actually think it's a lot easier to preserve games if they're digital. Some stuff on the back end just needs to change, but that stuff isn't hard to change, and look at how easy it is to preserve games on PC. That's what I would say is like you're
Yeah, like everyone's kind of calling doom and gloom on this, but I mean, like Steam has been doing this for years and they're massively successful. There's like people that are like, "Oh, my Steam library is like 20,000 games or whatever." It's like, like that's the thing. It's like you can get games generally cheaper. Now, like everyone is complaining about how like, "Oh, if they're going digital, then they should be cheaper." I'm like, "Well, no." I'm like, if
I
they've
don't agree.
sold you game X at $80 Canadian,
Hmm.
they're not going to make the digital version $60. They
No.
don't want some of the money, they want all of the money.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, like, it's
And
not gonna
and
change the price of digital
I'll
games
say it
whatsoever.
from another perspective as well. I do actually think that one thing that will happen if, and I do believe that Xbox, if we focus on Xbox because that's where this news is sort of coming from, I believe that Xbox next gen will be fully digital. That wouldn't surprise me at all because I think that not only as a platform worldwide are they 80% digital, but if you look at their strongest territories, they are actually over 90% digital in their strongest territories.
I wonder if they would make the next Xbox compatible with, like, external disk drives. Like, I'm talking, like, universal ones,
Mm-hmm.
where you can just, like, oh, you can just go buy a $20, like, disk thing and plug it in
Yeah.
through USB,
Well,
like
that's what I think they'll do. I think they'll do a thing similar to what PlayStation have tried to do with the
'cause there's
PS5 Slim,
'cause
where
there's UK laws, right, that prevent only having your platform available to your store.
yeah, you have so there's a new it's EU have they've just brought in a new law which is basically if you have a digital only platform, you have to allow other stores to also be on your platform. So you can't so that's why
Yeah,
Apple are now in this situation where they can't just have their own app store on their phones anymore. They have to allow other app stores onto their phones. Um but I don't think that's a problem. I think that you could be right on the money with the external disk drive type thing because even if they made their own one, right? And they can do it separate to how PlayStation have done it where with that you have to actually like attach the disk drive, put the side back on, all that kind of stuff. They
but wasn't
can
Microsoft going to do that thing where you could put a disc in your laptop, and if your Xbox account was tied to it, it would read it off
yeah.
that?
Yeah, precisely. So I think there are many many ways they can do it. I would expect them to go fully digital, and I think that if these consoles that leaked, if these console refreshes do come out, and we don't know if they are or not because there's some speculation that
Yeah.
plans could have changed, but if they do come out, I think that is them testing the water for how successful will these consoles actually be and would people buy them if we're able to offer more storage space but not with a disk drive, would people actually pick that up? And I can only speak for myself, but I know that I'd be more than happy to give up my physical disk drive for an extra terabyte of storage personally. um that's not for everyone,
Oh
but
god, if like the next consoles, like if they don't have a 5 terabyte drive minimum, like
yeah.
with like how big games are getting,
I think
because like some games are like 140 gigs now.
I would expect that next time round you're probably getting 2 terabytes built in, but then I think that similar to this console generation, I think you will have expandable storage options. Um, and I think they will be in place from launch next time. And I would expect as well Microsoft to actually have more expandable storage options because at the minute they have the 500
Yeah,
gig, they have the 1 terabyte, the 2 terabyte.
proprietary stuff needs to.
Yeah, and I
Like that's the
actually
one design of the PS5 I like, is that you can
yeah.
use almost
What
anything.
I will say though is I like the ease of use of the Xbox like cards, but they need to do it so that any company can make them. That's what they need to
I
do.
thought that was the case now.
So I think you still have to be an official partner, so it's hard to kind of do, but I know that Western Digital now do them as well, and obviously Seagate, but that's two companies, whereas on the PS5 you can buy any compatible SSD from any
Yeah.
company, and that's why the cost is so much better. Like, you can get 2 terabytes of PS5 storage for £100 British, which isn't a lot really for 2 terabytes of SSD storage.
Yeah.
um, so I think stuff around that needs to change if digital is the way that we're going. But I don't know about you, Jeff, but I just have no problem about this at all because I'm mostly digital anyway. Nintendo is probably the one platform where I'm still occasionally physical, and that's just because Nintendo games never go on sale, and I can get them cheaper physically than I can on the eShop, right? And the eShop
Well,
isn't great anyway.
yeah, the eShop absolutely sucks and stuff. But I mean, like in terms of like physical stuff, like like I tried going like pretty much all physical for a while and stuff. I'd buy digital copies and stuff like that. But I mean, like the amount of like game cases, like I'd have shelves and shelves and
Yeah.
shelves. So like when I was moving, to here,
Mm.
um, I ended up getting rid of like a lot of game cases. Here's all my 360 games.
Wow. Wow.
That's a 500 DVD binder, and it is filled. It's filled so much that like the zipper broke.
Oh, wow.
Like that, like the fabric broke on it. So like, you know, it's just what it is. Like I just don't have the space for it anymore.
Yeah.
So like I barely ever buy physical copies. The only time I
Uh,
ever do is if I'm trading stuff in
yeah.
and getting, games.
Yeah. The only time I tend to use physical copies, like, I don't have a physical PS5, I have the digital PS5. Um, but the only time I use physical copies is like if someone buys me an Xbox game as a present, but generally, people who know me know that I would rather have a digital game, and
Yeah.
therefore they will just buy me credit for the store, and then I buy the game myself. Um,
For me, it's a large part is game share
yeah,
because
yeah,
like, if I can split 50-50 on a game with my roommate,
yeah.
um,
Whereas,
it,
like
it
me,
works.
I game share with my brother, and between us, we own over 1,000 Xbox games, right? If it wasn't for game share, I'd probably own half of that, if not less. But it just,
Yeah.
especially when, because I want to say something as well, because I think a lot of people don't realize this. There are very good digital sales on games, like very
Oh yeah,
good
you go in
digital
the store,
sales.
there's like 700 to 800 games on sale every single week.
Yeah,
You go into a retail outlet and
yeah.
you're lucky if there's a
Well,
sale.
well, it's like me. A few months ago, because when I played Dead Space, I borrowed somebody's copy of it,
Yeah.
as in the remake, and then I saw about a month ago that it was on sale on the Xbox store for £8, which, generally speaking, this was like the deluxe edition of the game, and it was like 90% off. And I was,
You would never get that in a physical store
yeah,
ever.
yeah, you would never get that because you might get it on a pre-owned copy of a game. You might get it where you'll get a pre-owned copy of a game really cheap, but digital is not pre-owned. It's brand new. It's not gonna have the problem of, oh, maybe the disc is scratched and the game doesn't actually work properly, or you get so far in and then it just crashes and crashes.
S-
Like,
I still kind of wish that rumor like years ago where they were going to allow digital trade-ins
mhm.
would be a thing because then you could just go through your library and like,
well,
okay, I'm going to sell this one here
so
for $5, 10.
apparently that wasn't even a rumor. Apparently that was actually what Microsoft wanted to do with the Xbox One generation when they were
Yeah.
talking about the kind of push towards digital, and the idea was they were going to allow you to trade in or even swap licenses with your friends. So you could essentially lend each other games digitally. I don't think any of that was bad. I think the problem was people weren't
The
ready for
messaging was
digital
bad.
then, and the messaging around it was bad, right? And
Yeah,
it's
and it
like
didn't help, like, because like, like that decision destroyed Xbox. And
it
again,
did.
it's just misunderstanding
And the
because right now, like,
weirdest thing is that decision destroyed Xbox, but in the end they were right. How crazy
yeah,
is that?
like that's the thing. It's like people generally, like, they just weren't ready for it. The messaging was really bad.
Yeah,
Like Microsoft was kind of seeing the forest through the trees. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. The messaging was really, really bad.
yeah. And that's why I think that if they are stopping these physical games, the messaging around that needs to be right. Because I
Yeah.
don't see a problem with it, and I think the vast majority of gamers will not have a problem with it, right? I don't. Most people I know do not buy discs anymore. So
Well, I mean, there's stores that are not even carrying them anymore.
yeah,
Like Best Buy is essentially like you go into like any video game store that's not GameStop or
yeah,
Game or whatever the case is, and you're lucky if they have like 4 to 6 feet of games, and
hmm
even then, like
yeah,
it's it's an end of an era.
yeah. And
You know,
and
like
that's why it is a sad time. I'll give people that of like because I actually am someone who does collect some physical media. Mine is 4K DVDs. People people may not understand this, but they've been 4K remastering a lot of old movies, and they just look
yeah.
much better in most cases, except for Terminator 2. Never buy the
I'll get them
4K
okay today, but
version.
I won't rebuy like a movie that I already own on Blu-ray because I don't feel like the
Yeah,
visual jump is worth the $20 to $30.
yeah,
And even then, the
mhm.
only movies I buy now, yeah, are pretty much like the superhero movies, just because like I've got a collection of that's
Nice,
going, and
nice.
like
But
I've
yeah,
even bought like Love and Blunder and like Wonder Woman 1984, which are the complete dog shit movies,
yeah.
but I waited until Boxing Day and got them for like $10 piece.
Nice, nice. But yeah, so I have nothing against physical media,
Yeah.
but I do think that physical media has been dying for years. I think especially in games, and I think that we've got to the point where I'm sad to say it, but it just needs to sort of be accepted because, as a lot of these analysts are saying, by the time we get to the next generation in 2027 or 2028, like there will be no reason really for these companies to do physical games. It's going to
And if you
cost
take
them
a look,
more than it's worth.
yeah, if you take a look at physical games, even as it is right now, you're essentially just buying a license that's printed on a disc,
Yeah.
because most of the time when you get a game, you take it home, you put it in the disk drive, and it's like you install it, and it's like, oh, there's a 20 gig patch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, oh, the entire game's not on the disc? Like even some like Nintendo games require a download.
Yeah. And I think,
So,
and I
like,
understand from a collector's point of view as well that some people literally only buy physical because they want cases. But
yeah,
I think what they should do then is there should be this middle ground of you can buy a digital version with a case, or like people like steelbooks, right? People like these
yeah.
collectors steelbooks. You should be able to buy a steelbook but with a digital code. If that's what you want. If you're buying it because you want the physical collector's item, like collector's editions of games. I actually really like collector's editions. But
Yeah, a lot.
I love the fact that they now do digital codes in many of them.
Well, the reason, and like again, like most people like don't kind of think logistically about all of this, is those collector's editions are made, packaged, wrapped, waiting to be shipped months before the game goes gold. Same with like consoles and stuff. Like those consoles are sitting like 8 months before release. So like the Halo Infinite consoles were sitting like probably a year before
Yeah.
Halo Infinite even
They
launched.
had
So of
those
course it's going to be
consoles
a
ready
digital code.
before they even announced them. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
like that's how collector's editions work. Is
Yeah.
they generally don't. They're
And
generally like
it's
ready to
like
go even
and
before
it's
the
like
game
on
goes gold.
PlayStation. Every collector's edition for a PlayStation game is going to be digital because they have a digital only console, so they have to do it. And Xbox are kind of in the same boat because of the Series S, although I do think weirdly I think there is going to come a point in this generation where something happens where not every game is going to release natively on the Series S, and I think you'll have to play it through cloud gaming or something like that.
I still don't think that'll happen. I think they'll cut features like Baldur's Gate did,
Okay,
but I don't think we'll get to a point game wise because you got to
interesting.
figure the Xbox Series S and S probably only have about 2 to 3 years left
Yeah,
of
yeah,
exclusive games, and I don't see them cutting that within the last home stretch. You know,
yeah. I can appreciate that. I
I
can
think they've
appreciate
learned their
that.
lesson. I don't think they'll release the next Xbox
Mm,
with having a weaker powered one.
yeah, I think that the thing is as well. I think you can do. I think what they did wrong was that the power difference was too different. Do you know what I mean? It was. I think you.
If it had just been the console without the disc drive,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. If they had done the PlayStation thing where it was literally one console with the disc drive and one without, that would have been a massive,
and they
massive
could
win
have
for
bumped it
them.
up $50 and it wouldn't have made no difference.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. Um, I'm really keen to see what they do next gen. I do, like I said, based on this news, I do think it's very likely that they're going to go all digital next generation. I don't know if you agree with that, Jeff, but I think it's
I think they will, but I think they will still have alternatives for people who have physical copies
yes, yeah.
because you want to you want to keep that economy going.
hmm
So like
I
I
even
think they'll still have
that
alternatives.
reminds me of something actually. I even heard at one point of them doing a thing where if you had physical copies of a game, they were going to allow you to essentially put your disc in and get the rights to a digital copy. So you would essentially be, you know, you would still be able to access your games even though you only had a digital only console.
Yeah,
I
I don't know how they would track that if you would remove the disc or like if because
I think what they would probably have to do, I think the only way they could do it is they'd have to do it something on PC or on your laptop where
yeah,
you
that's what I was talking about earlier, where if you put the disc in your laptop, as long as the disc was there,
mhm,
you could download a digital version on your Xbox, but it still needed that disc there. So the moment
yeah,
you ejected the disc, the license would go like, "Hey,
yeah,
the source of this license is not being validated right now."
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Because obviously every license has its own code attached to it, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, when you buy a digital game, you just have loads of codes that are attached to your physical account, and you can't transfer. I do think the next big step for digital, which will probably change a lot of people's minds on it, is the ability to transfer ownership of digital licenses. Even if it's something where it's like you can only do it once a year, right? Or maybe you can only do it once every so often to stop people effectively just sharing games backwards and forwards between everybody forever. um there has to be some form of ownership transfer, I think, because that then creates potentially a second-hand market within the digital world. But you also
I
don't
think
even
it'll
have.
happen.
But you also don't even have to do it as a monetary market. You could literally just do it as a. Do you have you finished with this game? Do you want to trade it for another game with somebody else? It could be
Yeah,
that
because
kind
they
of
can
thing.
have programs where if you're treating it towards new releases, it'll bump up the trade like
Yeah,
GameStop does.
Yeah.
They could have types of things where, um, if you were trading in 3 Ubisoft games, you would get a brand new Ubisoft release.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's ways that they can kind of go about that and
Yeah.
allow publishers to kind of set their own
Absolutely.
restrictions.
Absolutely. So I am excited for this more digital future of gaming.
Well, I got one last news story before we jump into our games here.
Go on then.
And that is Apple will now allow game streaming apps, making Xbox Game Pass possible on iOS devices. Microsoft launched its cloud streaming service in September 2020, but it wasn't available on iPhone or iPad. That's because Apple had blocked the app in August of 2020, claiming it didn't fit within its app guidelines. Apple claimed at the time that was because Microsoft wasn't submitting each individual game to its review process. The app then enables access to those games was being blocked from publishing. Microsoft responded by alleging that Apple consistently treats gaming apps differently, applying more lenient rules to non gaming apps even when they were included interactive content. However, the situation has now changed according to a statement on Apple's developer website, which says it now is introducing new options for how apps globally can deliver in app experiences to users, including streaming games and mini programs. Developers can now submit a single app within the capability to stream all of the games offered in its catalog. Addressing its previous issue that Apple was unable to review each new game added to the streaming service, the company has now U-turned on that and said the onus is on us, is now on the app developer to make sure the content added is appropriate. Each experience made available in the app on the App Store will be required to adhere to all App Store review guidelines, as its host app will need to maintain an age rating of the highest age rated content included in the app. So this essentially means that if, for example, if there's a mature rated game, the app essentially has to say that it's a mature rated app.
Yeah. Yeah.
But still, it's a really, really good thing.
Is a massive step forward, I think, because Apple was the last sort of closed off system, right? Like, it's why a lot of people prefer Android devices, because they are open, they allow for more things, and sure. Oh, cat, hello. they're open, they allow for more
Trying to stop her
things.
from meowing, so I'm just giving her treats all the
and yeah, I think that it is a good thing. This is a very, very good thing. There's no negative to the
time.
customer. The only negative potentially would be slightly less security on Apple devices, in the sense of Apple, because they're such a closed off system, are very secure. It's very hard to get a virus or to be hacked on an Apple device. It can happen.
Well, they do that themselves when a new model comes out and they're like, oh, your new phone runs 20% slower. Shit. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I think it's very, very positive. That's all I really have to say on it. I don't know if you have anything to add, Jeff.
No, I just want to kind of end it kind of on a
Nice.
on
I
good news
do.
there.
Before we move on to what we've been playing, I do actually have one bit of news, and
Sure.
I was only reminded of it because we're recording today on what's the date today, Jeff?
27th.
It's the 27th, which is the day of the Royal Rumble for wrestling fans. And that reminds me that this past week, WWE 2K24 revealed its cover stars, revealed its release date, and that is coming in March. I don't have the exact date in front of me right now, so I apologise for that. But for those interested, Cody Rhodes is the cover star this year for the standard edition. You also have Rhea Ripley
Marching.
and Bianca Belair on the deluxe edition of the game, and then on the ultimate edition, if you will, of the game, you have a kind of celebratory cover with many different superstars, because this year they're celebrating 40 years of WrestleMania, and they're going to have a showcase mode which is celebrating that, which is where you play through kind of previous matches. And Jeff's seen this before as well. They've done those quite well recently, where they integrate real life footage and then immediately switch to gameplay, and they do some really interesting stuff with that.
as long as it's going to be better than the trailer, because that is the most horrible deepfake shit that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's like a Wish version, a Wish or like Timo version of like Stone Cold. And like even the Hogan thing, like why'd they bring back Hogan? I know he's a staple in WrestleMania and stuff like that, but he's also like an incredibly bad individual.
Yeah, well,
Um,
if you've been following wrestling recently, Vince McMahon is also a very bad individual.
yeah, he is gone. He's
Yes.
murdered.
Yeah, thank God
You
for
know?
that. um, but
Like,
yes.
yeah, I was reading some of that story and like there's a lot like I wonder if that's why Kevin Dunn left because
Mm,
like he just like up and left. It's yeah, it's such a messy story. I
it
mean,
is.
definitely go check out Variety's piece. I think it's Variety.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That wrote that thing on Vince and my God.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And look, we are the Gaming Mix podcast here. We told you we'd talk about entertainment soon, and at some times when it's relevant. And because we're on entertainment and we're on wrestling right now anyway, I might as well also give you the news that if you're in the US, as of January 2025, Monday Night Raw is going to be on Netflix.
Is it
So
just Monday Night Raw?
in the US, it is. Outside of the US, Netflix get everything. So here in the UK, they're going to have Raw, they're going to have SmackDown, and they're going to have all of the pay per view events as well. So it's kind of a massive deal for them. Um,
Yeah, here's the thing that bugs me.
Go on.
Netflix is notorious for one and done seasons. They'll be like, "Oh, sorry, we just don't have the budget to do a second season." Shit, goddamn, we know your show is popular. And they're like, "Oh, we can't do this, oh, we can't do that." It's like, "Oh, WWE, you want $5 billion? Yeah, sure, here you go. We have all the money in the world."
Yeah,
Fuck Netflix.
so they're paying 500 million a year for this. It's a
Yeah,
10-year contract, but they do actually have they have a clause to get out after 5 years if they want to, but they also
yeah.
have a clause to extend it for a further 10 years if they want to. So we could be so we could be
And
in
they're
for a
raising prices
situation.
to pay for this too.
Yeah, yeah. And we could be in for a situation where wrestling content is on Netflix for the next 20 years, which is something I never thought I would say. Um
Yeah.
I actually think that depending on where you are in the world, this is actually quite a positive thing.
Yes.
For example, for me in the UK, I now have to, as of January 2025, I'll pay one subscription fee. I don't need the WWE network anymore for the pay per views because they'll be on Netflix. It's also Netflix's first time going into live stuff, live programming. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how they handle that. I think that they've reported that there for subscribers there there will be no ad breaks. So that's interesting
See,
because that that kind of leads me to this thing of are they going to offer live TV for people who aren't subscribers but with ads? How are they going to
well, see,
how are
what I
they going to
think
do
that
it?
what I think Netflix should do is they should have a Netflix and Netflix Premium. And Netflix Premium is what gets you things like WWE and some of the higher tier things and stuff so that if you want to pay for it, you can. If you don't care about wrestling and you just want your Netflix for whatever the case is, then you just get regular Netflix.
Yeah, I
And then
agree.
if you want to try out that stuff, then
Hmm.
it would come with ads as
Yeah.
some type of trial.
Yeah.
If they did that and have a two-tier structure, I think it would be fine.
Yeah, I agree because they're clearly going to raise the prices for this, right? Because
Well, they already talked about it.
this is big. Like I know that people who aren't into wrestling probably don't understand this, but wrestling
Yeah.
is big. Wrestling is big entertainment, and Monday Night Raw specifically, which is the main one because it's going to be everywhere in the world on Netflix. Um, that has been on TV, on traditional TV. It's literally the longest running weekly show of one episode a week ever, and it's now not going to be on traditional TV anymore. Um, so that's really, really interesting. Yeah, I do wonder how they felt after kind of announcing this deal the other day and then having this Vince McMahon news. That was, they were probably like, oh, have we made the right decision here? We saw that Slim Jim pulled the sponsorship for the Royal Rumble, so that was, so there's lots of stuff going on in the
Why
WWE
they pull?
world.
Oh, did they pull it because of Vince?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, yeah. They pulled it because of Vince, and 12 hours later, he resigned. He resigned in good faith, apparently.
Snapped it to a Slim Jim.
um, and then the other little bit of wrestling news, as I might as well finish it off, is that The Rock joined the board of directors for TKO, the parent company of WWE and UFC, which is an interesting move. Um, but yeah, I'm sure we'll see The Rock in the video game. That means,
We're gaming.
yeah, yeah. Well, there we go. That's all of our news for this week. I think now we should get into what we've been playing. I think you, Jeff, should probably go first because I have a lot to say. So,
Sure. So yeah, like I'm playing a couple of games that are embargoed, so I can't talk about those. But I have been putting a lot of time into Pal World, the old controversial did they steal it or not type of thing. And again, like that's a completely separate argument that has been blown out of proportion with people faking information essentially
and
to
also,
tell their
the
story.
one thing I'd say on that before you continue
Yeah,
is that if you actually go and watch any lawyer who knows what they're talking about, it's very unlikely that Nintendo can do anything about this game.
there may be a couple changes that they might have to make because there is one PAL, for example, that has the exact face of Galarian Meowth.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, like they're again, like they're knockoff Pokemon in a lot of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
like there's a Vulpix, there's a there's all these types of things and stuff.
And
But
this game has blown
uh,
up.
yeah, so Power World is sitting at what are it was at 8 million, I
8
think.
million in
I wonder if
six
it's at nine.
days. 8
I
million
wonder
in
if it's
6
like
days. And
sale.
apparently, according to Jeff Keighley, that 8 million in sales is just on Steam. So
Yes, because Xbox hasn't released its sales
So
figures or
I'd be
anything like
so
that.
I'd be really interested to see what the actual total sales of this game are, because I
I would
know.
be a bit surprised between all three platforms,
Mm,
like Windows, like the Xbox Store on Windows, Steam, and then Xbox. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if there's at least 12 to 13 million people playing this right now.
yeah, I would agree because it's on Game Pass as well, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't
The
be
Game Pass
surprised.
version is different than Steam. It's a completely different client.
Yeah.
Um, so like the build version is very different, but the client version is different as well.
Interesting.
So Pal World essentially was sold to us as Pokemon with guns, and that's not quite what it is. It is Pokemon with guns. Like some of the pals, you can put a some machine gun in the hands of a monkey. Like it does have Pokemon with guns, but it's not Pokemon with guns. It does not play anything like Pokemon. This is like Ark. This is like Valheim. This is like survival games like that. Um, so the nice thing about it is you can customize your server so that you have greater experience gains, or you don't consume stamina so much, or a variety of different things. So I'm playing on like Xbox doesn't have dedicated servers. The PC version on Steam does, where you can have up to 32 players. Xbox, you can only have up to four. That stuff's all going to change at some point. But so basically, this is a game where you kind of start off on the beach, surrounded by pals. You get up, you grab a tablet that says the towers are the key, and then you go on and you make your base, you collect your pals, and then you go and conquer the challenges at the towers, which are essentially just like Pokemon trainer battles. That's the only time you're ever fighting people using pals. Other than that, you're fighting like um, just various forces around the island that are capturing pals and all that kind of stuff. So this game basically you kind of use the pals as slave labor. So you'll capture a pal and you'll put him to task in your base, whether it's mining rock or collecting lumber or helping to build facilities and all that kind of stuff. The base building stuff is very basic right now. They don't have things like small staircases or half walls or anything like that. You also can't upgrade your base with new materials. You literally have to deconstruct what you have and then rebuild it with the new materials, which sucks. But again, this is early access. So it's eventually going to hit PS4 probably in a year or so when 1.0 hits. This is the same team that made Craftopia, and if you look at that game, it's very similar to this one. Pal World's just fun. It's a very kind of chill, low risk kind of survival game. Um, you'll make food if you get hungry and things like that. You can bring six pals with you to fight other pals. You can research materials to make a.
You can kill little sheeps and roll them around like footballs.
Oh yeah, if you kill them, their body is just like you. Just like I'm just going to push this over a cliff. But you can make saddles for some of them and stuff, and like fly and ride them and all that kind of stuff. And again, a lot of the designs are right out of Pokemon.
Yeah.
There's some of them, if you look at it, you're like, oh, that's this, that's this, that's
Mhm.
that. Like you
I've
can get it. They
played.
don't have a Pikachu, which I think is the biggest thing in
Yeah.
the biggest feather in the cap right now is that Nintendo probably won't go after them too hard because they don't have a Pikachu. They have an
Yes.
Electabuzz, but they don't have a Pikachu.
So I've only played about an hour of this game. I do actually want to play more of it because I think it's a good game. Like, I
Yeah,
know there's
I'll
a
bring you
lot.
into my island because I've got like a lot going on.
I
Um,
I know that there's a lot of like, oh, did they steal this and are they using AI and no one's sure if they've actually used AI or not. All this kind of stuff. But my attitude on it is, who cares? They've made a game that's fun and that's good. As long as they're breaking no laws, why does that really matter? Like,
yeah, like the plagiarism stuff is kind of going to plague it right now, and I think that's a lot of the draw
yeah.
for why it's succeeded so much. Because I mean, like no one's made a Pokemon survival game,
Yeah, this is the
and
game.
so this is
I think that that's the thing as well, right? Is this is closer to the game that a lot of people want Pokemon to be, and that's why it is capturing people in that way, right?
yeah, like it's super fun. Like the gameplay loop and stuff is what it is. Like it's you go around with your pals, you capture other pals. Like you'll increase the type of ball you have. You can increase your character rank so that you can have a better capture rating.
Mhm. You
There's
can
facilities
capture
to make
human
that allow you to make
beings.
weapons. That's a glitch. That's a glitch right now. But it's that much closer to the true WWE experience that Vince wanted with human trafficking. Um, but yeah, like it's really good. Like they did such a good job with that game. Like there's obviously it's early
Mhm.
access. There's a lot of um kind of jank in
Yeah.
the game. Like right now the Xbox version does not
What,
look nearly as good as the
yeah.
PC version.
What I
Like
would
there's so many
say
blurry
though,
textures I thought I was playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
what I would say though is that in early access are issues like that really a big deal, right? Because when you go into a game knowing that
I
it's early access, you have to
knowing it's
somewhat.
early access, I still think that texture should work.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah. But no, it's like they do such a good job with this game, like in regards to kind of what you have access to, because like you can make like a pretty decent variety of weapons. I'm still weirded out. There's no sword. There's a baton and like a club, but there's no sword. Yeah, like you have a shield where you can like take damage and stuff like that. The crossbow is so freaking good. It is the best weapon in the game. You can get guns and sniper rifles and all that kind of stuff, and that stuff works fine. Um, except making bullets is pretty expensive in regards to like because like when you go to make like a really high-end saddle
Mm-hmm.
for like one of your pals, like you'll have a little bar that or a little circle that fills up. And like when you're making some of those, the bar literally goes like this. Like it is the slowest thing in the entire world. And pals will come in and surround you and then you'll see the thing go like more. So
Yeah.
each PAL has kind of like a job it's good at, whether it's lumbering or mining or gathering and stuff,
I
and you'll
like that
place
they
them in.
actually do jobs. That's the thing. I like that
They're your slaves.
you're not just capturing these people or these
Yeah,
monsters to go and fight other monsters. They are actually doing things for you. Whereas
yeah, and you'll find.
I was going to
But
say in other games like Ark, for example, which I have enjoyed in the past, you can capture dinosaurs and other things, but they don't really do anything other than helping you to fight other dinosaurs. There's not it's not like
yeah,
they're pulling out a pickaxe and mining stone for you or things like that. So I like that they've put their own little spin on it.
oh, one of them actually holds the pickaxe and actually like gathers materials with their tail.
Oh wow.
Like they don't even use the pickaxe. They're just holding on to it, and you see their tail like swatting the rock. It's so funny. But like there's some neat things there. There's some issues right now. Like the AI is not good. Like if you have a pal that's good at six
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
it won't know what to do.
I'm really intrigued though to see where this game is in a year or in 2 years. You know, like in a year, this game might not even exist anymore, depending on what Nintendo decides to do. Um, but also in a year, it could be a significantly better game, right? I think that it is a shame. It's a massive shame for PlayStation players that they can't access it right now because PlayStation doesn't want to allow early access releases. Um, because I think similarly to PUBG back in the day, right? PUBG went onto Xbox earlier, and by the time it went onto PlayStation, PUBG had almost died out. Like
Yeah.
people had already had their fill of that game, and there were there were alternatives that were more engaging to people at the time. And I think that Pal World might suffer a similar thing where by the time it gets to PlayStation, I think it won't matter anymore in the same way. Like it's exploding right now. Is it going to explode again when it comes onto PlayStation in a year or 18 months? I'm not
No.
too sure. I'm not too sure about that. So it is a shame.
By that time, Examon 3 will be out and people will get their Pokemon fixed there.
Yeah. So have you been playing anything else, Jeff?
I don't think nothing I can really talk about. No, I've wanted to download that. I was watching some type of thing on YouTube where they were talking about like some League of Legends games, and they showed this one, I think it was called um uh Nunu or something. League of Legends. Nunu, which is like a platform kind of thing. It's like a boy and his Yeti type of thing. It's Nunu and Will
Oh,
Up.
oh, okay,
And that's one
interesting.
game I definitely want to check out. It like if you check a trailer out for this game, it looks amazing. Like League of Legends is doing some amazing things with their
Yeah.
properties where people are like, "Hey, we want to make this game." And they're like, "Yeah, go for it." And this is like a kind of platform that kind of reminds me of like it was at Mugen in the Forsaken Kingdom, which is an absolutely amazing game where you play as a person
Mhm.
and an ogre type of thing, and they kind of go on this adventure. And that's what this is. Like the platforming looks good, the presentation looks fantastic. It's available on Switch and Steam. It came out in October of last year. No one's talking about this game at all. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this was a massive critical failure because no one talked about this game
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no,
That
that's
is
it.
a shame. That is a shame.
So Jordan,
Uh,
you have been experiencing the sights of Hawaii
I have.
as two of our favorite brawlers.
I have. Um, I I might be playing my game of the year already, and I didn't expect to be saying that. So first of all, I'd like to say it is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and I did have early access. So thank you to Sega
Lucky
and Outer
bastard.
Haven for helping me with that. As I said on Twitter, I'm not actually reviewing the game for Outer Haven. I was originally, and then things just happened outside of my control, and they have a review up now because essentially we weren't sure that we were getting access or not. Um,
I got a
ha-
code, so I'm gonna try and do a review for the site. it's a very, very long game.
Yes.
I'm going to
Yeah.
do everything I possibly can.
Now allow me to explain to you how long this game is. Or
Yeah, it's like 100 hours, pretty much.
yeah, so you can finish the main story in about 50 hours. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
However, the reason you will not do that is first of all, I want to talk about the fact that it starts somewhat slow, reintroducing you to the characters, which I genuinely think are some of the best characters in video games. This is such a lovable cast of characters, each with their own unique quirks and everything. And you have Ichiban Kasuga, who is just a lovable buffoon, right? You're playing as him, and this is basic setup for the story. This is things that you would have seen if you've watched trailers and stuff like that. So I'm not really spoiling anything, but if you've been blackout on it, please just go away for a couple of minutes. You get called to go to Hawaii because you're trying to find your mother, basically. And while in
Yeah, that was in
Hawaii,
the demo.
you will encounter our other beloved friend, Kiryu, who, of
Yeah.
course, had his own spin-off game recently, which was mixed reception in some ways, but people still enjoyed it. And yeah, he's back. He has something very serious going on in his life. I don't actually know if they put that in a trailer or not, so I'm not gonna say it. Um, but
I know in the demo they talk about it, and that is that he goes to Hawaii essentially because it was like a place that him and his like wife wanted to go or something like
mhm,
that. Like there's like an emotional tie that brings them to Hawaii.
yeah,
Whether that's what you're talking about, I don't know. But I mean,
yeah.
I'll eventually get into that.
So yeah, there's something really quite emotional going on with Kiryu, and this feels very much like a passing of the torch game in a very good way. And then I have to talk about the gameplay because obviously it is turn based and that's not for everybody, but they've made some very very smart changes here. Firstly, if you and Jeff, you will know some of these anyway because you've played the demo, right? But
Yeah.
you can move around within a certain area now. So you have like a circle around you, and this circle, as you level up, actually gets bigger. So you have
Hmm.
more space to move around. You also have different buffs for your attacks. So like you can have like a proximity bonus, which wasn't previously in the game. You have better UI indications for things like area of effect attacks and like when you attack an enemy, it will show you where they're going to be pushed to, and you can actually hit enemies into other enemies to damage both of them at the same time, and you can
Hmm.
also hit enemies towards your party mates and they will do additional attacks as well. So
Okay.
um another thing you can do is everything, something we all love in Yakuza, which is use weapons in the environment. Things like traffic cones and bikes, and all of these people in your party can use these. If you're stood, you'll have like a little icon that comes above one of these items when you're stood near it, and you press the attack button, you select who you want to attack, and it will attack them with the weapon. However, my piece of advice to you is, although attacking with a weapon does do sometimes bonus damage depending on which character you're using, don't automatically attack with a weapon every time, because sometimes your characters might have elemental statuses that they can inflict on somebody, which will actually be more beneficial. So, for example, my Ichiban does lightning damage, he does electrical damage, and therefore me hitting somebody with a weapon like a traffic cone doesn't always do as much damage as my electrical damage would, because some enemies are weak to electricity, right? So you have to kind of... There's much more of a tactical element, and because you can move around, you can line up attacks more effectively. For example, one of the other bonuses you get is attacking enemies from behind. So if you're attacking from behind, I think you get about 20% extra damage, something like that. So again, it's just about being able to move around. Gives you a lot more options. It gives you a lot more freedom. They've also taken away the silly thing from the previous game, where if you were trying to attack an enemy and there was another enemy in front of that enemy, the enemy who was in front could sometimes block your attack or like trip you up and things like that. That no longer happens. Like it never happens. They will just move out of your way so you can run and attack the enemy. So yeah, they've made really, really smart changes, and I would say that every single one of them is for the better. There seems to be more job roles in this game.
Oh, that's good.
There seems to be a lot more side content as well.
We got a whole Animal Crossing island.
Yeah.
Like, we finally got Animal Crossing in HD. We did it, people.
So, this is why I've put 36 hours into this game, and I am in chapter 6. Okay? And I've only just got to the Animal Crossing island bit. Because there is, so mild spoiler, when you first encounter that, it is part of the story. And you have to do the tutorial for that mode as part of something that happens in the story. And then my understanding is that mode is completely optional from then on. However, the one that I've really enjoyed a lot more is... There is Sujimon, which obviously were in the previous game, and you would collect Sujimon, which are essentially the enemies you face, because Ichiban views the world like it's Dragon Quest.
Yeah.
So
I saw this one that looks like Metapod. He's like in like a little like sleeping bag or something.
Yeah. So, but what they've done this time is it's not just like having a Pokedex, right? It's not just that. They've literally made a Pokemon game inside of this game. You can go and have battles. You're going to different gyms to try and earn the badges. You're leveling up and evolving these Sujimon into other things.
Evolving. Fucking hell.
Yeah, they actually evolve. You feed them to each other. Essentially, it's called awakening a Sujimon, and you feed them other versions of themselves to then evolve them into the next thing, and you can also strengthen them up.
Does the sleeping bag just turn into a big camper guy where he's got like a big tent or something?
And it's genuinely like, it is side content, but it's so enjoyable and it's so well done that I think it could have been its own game. Like, I really do. I really think it could have been its own game. And I'm only scratching the surface with the Dondoko Island stuff. But that is Animal Crossing inside this video game. And it's a fully fledged thing. Like, you're going around, you're clearing trash, you're having to pay to clear out
houses.
Yeah, it's like you're building stuff, you're upgrading your own house. You know, you're doing different tasks each day. Obviously, the bonus is it's not in real time, right? So you can just go to sleep and it's immediately the next day. It seems to be a good way to make money, because what you're essentially trying to do is get a 5-star resort. But there are these pirates and you have to fight them. But during this mode, the fighting is real time. It's no longer turn based.
Oh.
So it's slightly different. It's a little bit clunky. I won't lie, from my initial playing of it, because there's basically one attack button and a dodge. So it is
Hmm.
slightly clunky.
So it's intentionally clunky.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
It's clunky in the way that Animal Crossing is clunky to do certain things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but I can see myself losing a lot of hours just to that mode. Like, I
Mhm.
got to a 1-star resort last night out of 5 because you have to basically upgrade certain things and clear certain areas to get the next star rating.
This
And
this replaces the realty
it
kind of
does.
stuff.
It does
Yeah.
because I got to 1 star and I immediately got $10,000, right? Because it's dollars in this game, it's not yen.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
Uh,
because you're in Hawaii.
yes, and yeah, like I'm just loving it. They somehow have managed to perfectly again kind of balance this super serious story with lovable video game weirdness in a way that completely makes sense in the universe. And Hawaii is a massive map that doesn't feel too big and also feels really lived in because there's a lot going on. Like you'll be
Isn't that
walking. Go
isn't
on,
there a
Jeff.
crazy taxi?
There is, yeah. So that's one of the
Yeah.
other. So this is more of a mini game side content type thing. Um, but there's something called Crazy Eats, and
Oh,
effectively, it is Crazy Taxi, but you're going around on a bike, picking up different food items, and doing tricks on this bike while you're doing it, and then delivering them to people to get a certain score. There's also another mini game where you essentially go onto like a tram or a cable car type thing, and you're taking photos of what they call freaks, right? And these are men that are basically in leotards with masks on, thrusting their hips and jumping out of bushes and stuff like that. And you're basically taking photos of them like a Pokemon Snap style game.
oh, that's neat.
And you're getting points, and those points can be used to to buy certain items, or in certain cases you can actually convert the points directly into cash as well. So there are many different ways to earn money. Every single bit of side content that I've engaged in I've loved so far, because there is the weird stuff and then there's the really kind of lovable stuff as well. So like, you know, I was walking around in the game in Hawaii the other day, and I was trying to go to one of the shops, and then I go into a shopping center, I go past an escalator, and all of a sudden this woman's shouting out, "Ah, my baby, help me," kind of thing, and this pram flies down the escalator, and you start chasing after it as Ichiban in one of these like chase scenes with QuickTime events, and it's just going all over the place. It's nuts, and I won't spoil it, but that is actually connected to a side quest which is somehow super serious and really funny at the same time, and it's got a returning character in it as well from previous game. It's very very interesting. The cat is moving around Jeff's camera, so this feels very
It's like
appropriate.
typing against the laptop. How is Yongli?
So I actually really like him so far. Although what I will say is I agree with some of the reception I've seen around it, which is you can tell that he has less experience than the rest of the voice cast.
Yeah.
However, I actually think his performance is very good. And he gave one of the scenes quite early on between Kiryu. So for those that don't know, YouTuber, well, who you might know as YouTuber Young voices Kiryu, the English voice. And there's a scene between him and Ichiban, and what I think that he does very well is he has this stoic nature to the voice that also projects emotion at the same time. And that is what Kiryu is. Like, you can feel Kiryu's emotion even in his stoicism, right? And I think that,
Yeah, like, what I played of the demo is just very flat.
yeah, and I think there is more to it than that. Like, he does quite well with a lot of the side stuff as well. There's some
Yeah.
funny little things, and I do think, like I said, if I was to be critical of him, it's that the quality of his performance is not up to the quality of the rest of the cast, at least so far. But
I
I
think that
think,
falls on the voice director as well too,
yeah,
like not just Yongyi.
yeah. And I also think that part of that might be that I'm just not far enough in Kiryu's story yet. So
Yeah.
I know that there is a part of the game where you actually play as Kiryu, as your main playable character. Um,
How does it handle the Switch?
so from what I understand, because I haven't got to that part yet, but from what I
Yeah.
understand is it will do uh at certain chapter points you switch from one to the other. And then I
Okay.
think that you can't, from what I've been told, you can't manually switch yourself unless you play New Game Plus. But of course, many people won't even have access to New Game Plus because that is hidden behind specific editions of the game, or you can buy an add-on, which I bought because I'm enjoying this game enough that I know I want to play New Game Plus. But
Yeah.
it cost me £16, you know, to buy as an add-on because I didn't
Yeah,
have.
I just bought the regular one. Like I hardly ever play New Game Plus on
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. But what I would say is, in simple terms, if I was to describe this game so far, 6 chapters in, 36 hours in, it's an improvement in every single way on the previous game, but it
Yeah.
still has some of the same issues as well. One example being, I know that something people struggled with in the last game was the pacing of the main story. I actually think that is still somewhat of an issue. The game
Yeah,
starts.
Gaiden's pacing was all over the place.
Yeah, so I think the pacing is still somewhat of an issue. However, if you've played Yakuza or Like a Dragon games before, you know what you're getting into in regards to
Yeah.
that. And outside of that, I genuinely do think every single thing in this game is better than the last one. I think combat is vastly improved. I think that job roles seem more important than ever as well. Like, you can do very different things depending on the job role of your characters. Something else that I also like is that the way the leveling up works is you obviously have your character level and the job level, which you always had. But the difference between this game and the last game is last time most of your stat improvements would come from improving the job role, and your
Mm.
character level was only minimal in terms of how much it would improve your stats. That has now been flipped. So the job
Okay.
role has minimal stat improvements. Obviously, you will unlock new
That
moves.
that entices you to actually try different jobs because your
Yeah,
your your character essentially is like now the pillar
yeah.
of who they are.
I'm level about 26 or 27 now. And if I changed my job role, I would lose some stats, but it would be far less significant than if I was all of a sudden level 20. Do you know what I mean? Like, you will earn, for example, I'm earning about an extra 10 to 20 HP points for every level that I go up, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I'm earning maybe 1 HP point for every job level. Um, so it's there. Yeah, you are enticed to try different jobs and things like that. The way that you unlock the jobs is similar in most cases, in terms of you go to a specific place and you basically ask to change job, but you pay in-game money to do an activity which then unlocks that job. However, in some cases, you unlock a job through engaging with certain side content. So, for example, one of the job roles I have is a Sujimancer, right? Which basically means that if I want to, it's a specific role for Ichiban, but I can essentially make him a magic build and summon my Sujimon from the side mode to actually fight people on my behalf. And it's a nice way of kind of tying in the side content with the rest of the game, because in the side content of the Sujimon stuff, you build up a bond with these monsters, and the higher your bond and the higher level they are, if you are then the Sujimancer job role, when you call on them to do attacks in combat, their attacks will actually be stronger based on their level in the other mode and based on their connection and bond with you in that other mode. So it's a really, really neat way of doing things. And then, of course, one thing I didn't mention is that you still have pound mates, which is essentially your summons.
Yeah.
And there's some really, really there seems to be a lot more of those this time, and there are some really funny ones. So I won't spoil them. But yeah, this game, it's on course to be my favourite in the series, is how I would put it so far. I'm very, very impressed. I know
Yeah, I'm gonna play some tomorrow.
I know
So
that it has, or at least many people tell me it's having pacing issues in the later half of the game. So I will come back and talk about those in the future. I'm sure that me and Jeff, when we've both played it, will probably do a spoiler cast on it. Just because this is one of the bigger games of the year. You know, it's a long-awaited game. People loved the last one. It got 90 on OpenCritic, I believe. It came out at the same day as Tekken 8, which also got a 90. So, so far, between Prince of Persia and those two games, we're having a great year for games in terms of the actual quality of games again. It's just a shame that we're having many, many layoffs at the same time. But yes, I think that will do it for this episode, because that's all I've really been playing. So unless you have anything to add, Jeff, I think that's probably it.
no, I got about 10 hours of driving to do now, so
Nice. Have fun with that while I go and play some more Like a Dragon, trying to get to actual infinite wealth in the game. That would be helpful, because I need money. Some of these weapons cost a hell of a lot, people. They cost a hell of a lot. So yeah, there you have it. That's my thoughts. Once again, I apologise for 2 episodes in quick succession. That's not how we planned for things to happen, but
never apologize for content, Jordan.
YouTube
Never.
just let us down. If you have been playing Like a Dragon over the weekend, please let us know what you think in the comments. If you've been playing Power World, let us know what you think of that as well, because, you know, both of those games are probably going to be exploding right now.
Yeah, let me know if Tekken is worth 94 Canadian.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let Jeff know if you're playing Tekken. And there you have it. We will see you next time. So for now, it's a goodbye from me, and I'm sure it's also a goodbye from Jeff.
See you guys.